grind the sausage. She would keep the sausage. She would fry the sausage, put it in these jars, turn the jars upside down, and the grease from the sausage would preserve the sausage until another year.
That's amazing.
And I knew how to cold pack. I knew how to can. I knew everything.
So what's cold pack?
Cold pack is when you put stuff in a jar, and you have a canner, and you put the jars inside of water, and they boil, and then that is cold pack. That preserves them, and then you could just cook them. And then we would peel apples and can those. We would peel peaches. We'd can those, and then my grandmother had what they call a scaffold. And have you ever seen the dried fruits, like dried peaches, dried apples? They would have a scaffold, and they would peel apples. We would peel apples and slice them and put them on the scaffold and let them dry. We'd do the same thing to peaches. We'd wash those, peel those, and put them out in the sun and let them dry. But we'd bring them in at night, put them back out the next day until they had turned the right color that they were already.
So all during the Depression, the late 1920s into the early 1930s.
Right.
What you all had enough food and supplies?
Yes, we did, but that was a very hard time for my father. My father said he only put one Republican in the White House, and that was Hoover. And he said he almost starved. And he was a Republican up until during the Depression time of Hoover. And he said, that's it. Said, I'm going to be a Democrat. And he said, I'm going to be a Democrat until I die.
So let's talk a little bit about him voting. What was it like voting in Merrifield and Fairfax County?
Very hard. Very hard.
What did he have to do?
Well, in order to inform people of voting, you couldn't be too public about it. You had to go about it like a flashlight thing, at night. And you had to be very secret, okay? If you're going to a meeting or what, you couldn't say that you were going to inform people or get people interested in voting. You had to say, we're just going to have a meeting. And it was very, very secretive. Very, very secretive. But my father informed all of us. We have had it so hard in trying to have the voting rights that we should have. As people, I want you all as children to fight for your rights.
Amen.
Because it was like a Ku Klux Klan thing. If they caught you, this meeting is going on for voting, we'll just try to destroy everybody sitting. And as my father said, it's like a flashlight thing. Hey, whisper to somebody, don't forget to vote. Go somewhere, tell somebody if they're age to vote. But he instilled in us what our rights would be.
Do you know where your father had to go to vote?
Now, I don't know. I think he went to Alexandria. I don't know. I don't know whether he went to Fairfax. But I tell you, when we were children, we always called Fairfax, and no reflection on anyone that lives there now, we call Fairfax a cracker town.
And why would you?
Fairfax did not like black people.
And why do you say Fairfax didn't like black people?
Because my father had a lot of trouble in Fairfax. And we only knew one doctor there, and that was Dr. Brooks. And he was a wonderful doctor. And he was, at the time, when we were children, there were house visits from doctors. You see, they cut that out. Because he would come and see us at the house. And they also delivered babies at home, but most of the time they had midwives, my mother said, during her time when we were born. But I know when I was born, the Knickerbocker Theater fell in because the snow was so deep. The snow was past my mother's bedroom window. And I think they said when you walked along, you put your arms, on it. After they dug out paths, you could just walk along and put your arms on it. But they couldn't even get there because the snow was too deep. So my grandmother delivered me because she was a midwife. And that's what they called, delivery people or nurses then, or people who delivered babies. They made money. They called them midwives. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes. So let's talk about you going to the Merrifield School and then First Baptist of Merrifield. But let's start with your education. What was it like going, or where did you go to school, and what was it like?
Well, my mother and father, which it hurts me to say, they didn't get an education because they had to work on the farm. My brothers, they didn't get, because they did farm work. That's the only way that they could make a living. Now, my brothers couldn't go to school because at the time that schooling was, that was a time harvesting time. And they had to put food up for cattle and the barns and all. They missed a lot of time. And my father instilled in us to try to get as much education as we could get. The schools was far. Now we had to walk 3 miles to Merrifield to get an education. But my father said, do it. Because we weren't allowed to get the education that you have. He said, because we had to fight for our rights, we had to fight for our education, we had to fight to vote. He said it was a war going on in everything that black people had a right to do. So we had to walk 3 miles. That was 6 miles a day in a one-room school. And I think after Darley came along, it was different. Darley, you didn't go to Merrifield, did you?
She can't hear you.
Okay. One-room school by Mrs. Walker. She's dead now.
What was her first name?
Her first name was, what was that? Mrs. No, it wasn't. What was? No, Winnie, not Winnie. Alma. First name was Alma. She taught 6 grades. Now you couldn't go to school in kindergarten because you had to be 6 or 7, I think, before you could enter school. That was the law then, but she had changed. She taught from the 1st to the 6th grade, to the 7th grade.
And what was the schoolhouse like?
A frame, and it had a stove, big old, like Merrifield Church, wood iron stove. A minute a day, we had duties. I had duty once a week to put the wood in. And they had seats on each side and an aisle. But it wasn't that many. You'd be surprised. But they taught everything from I would say they taught the basics, like math, reading, science, and they also taught economics because the boys, they taught them wood, how to carve and make, wood things, and then the girls, home economics. And the boys, they were taught how to, most of them how to build and make just small things. Like sometimes they would teach them how to make maybe little houses or how to put houses together, or maybe they would teach them how to make just maybe novel things, like a little cedar chest or something that you could put things in. Okay. But the boys had that and the girls home economics.
Now, after you finished with the Merrifield School, did you then go to another school, like a high school?
Manassas Industrial School. That was a school that was founded by Jenny Dean. You heard about that, didn't you? Yeah. And that was wonderful. Now they had everything there that high school should have, but the thing of it is, we had another long journey. We had a bus, and that's one thing about it. The black people fought for our community, and I guess the surrounding communities, so that we could go to high school. But the bus started to picking up children in places like Gum Spring and Spring Bank. So you had to be out on the road at 7 o'clock in the morning. And some of them in Gum Spring had to be out at 6 o'clock if they stopped to be picked up. You had buses that would carry us to Manassas. Now, when they picked us up, we got on the bus with children from Gum Spring and from Spring Bank. And it looked like to me that you was on the road all morning, but this is the best that we could do. Because they had no high school. They had high schools there for the white, but not for the black. Jenny Dean founded that school. That was a boarding school. And then they turned it into a high school for other children in the area so that the black children could get an education. Mm-hmm. And I just think about how fortunate the young people are now, just throwing away opportunities. And we had to get up 5 o'clock in the morning, get out on the road no later than 6:45 to get that county school bus to go to Manassas, Virginia.
How many miles did you walk from your house to catch the bus?
Oh, we didn't have to walk far, right up to the pike, because see, we were near the pike, and I was just so happy. I said, this is a prime time of my life.
So you're talking Little River Turnpike?
Yeah, Little River Turnpike. That's why we had to walk. But see, some of them had to walk farther than that. Some had to walk a mile or two to get to the bus. But we made it. And thank God we were interested in our education. You know, we didn't go there for form or fashion. We wanted to get somewhere. And my father said, "Joe, please,